Well, we've been waiting for something to happen for quite some time. Everyone was talking about how Freddie was going to sign immediately once the lockout ended. I think we were refreshing Twitter every probably like most Braves fans every 3 5 minutes, just waiting for something to happen. Nothing happened, and then boom. Of course, as I'm like getting out of my car, like going somewhere, I've been home for like 3 straight days, haven't moved, and like right when I get in my car to go pick something up, it's like, oh, Braves trade for Matt Olson, an absolute bombshell. And it's kind of a bittersweet day because you look at it on one hand, you get one of the best first basemen, a guy who looks like a rising star who could potentially hit 40 to 50 home runs in your lineup at a good price for the next 2 years. But then you're also, I mean, assuming something crazy doesn't happen, you're moving on from Freddie Freeman, the face of this franchise, the guy who carried us through this rebuild. He really seems like if there was a guy that I could say Mr. Brave of this last decade, it's definitely him. So it's a sad day, obviously, to see him go. Whether the Braves are going to be better with Olson or Freeman, that's yet to be determined. But I will say, when you look at what we gave up for him, it's kind of hard, at least from my perspective, to really view this as like a resounding win. Like, yes, are the Braves going to be good with Olson next year? No doubt. But giving up Pache, giving up Langoliers, who I know we're both very, very high on, as well as Cusick, who was our first round pick this past season, Joey Estes, another pretty nice prospect that a lot of people like. Um, that's a lot for a guy that you could have just paid Freddie Freeman the money and you hang on to him and you don't have to give up any of that. The Braves already saw a lot of their prospects graduate. Now their farm system's completely depleted. I mean, this is it. This is their window for the next 5 years. I get that, but you could have just done this by paying Freddie Freeman. So it's hard for me to say the Braves won this situation. But again, I don't know what payroll's like. I don't know what the budget's like. I don't know how handcuffed Alex Anthopoulos was.
Yeah, and we keep talking about, did they win? Did they win? Well, this could also turn into Matt Olson plus Jorge Soler and plus Eddie Rosario. Like, we have to keep that in mind. The Braves probably freed up $12 to $14 million, whatever they would have been paying Freeman, considering Matt Olson's making about 12. If you pin Freddie about 30, 32 million, something like that. Bringing back Jorge Soler would be massive. The Braves are in talks with him, according to our very good friend Hector Gomez. Love Hector. And, Eddie Rosario is still out there. I'd love to have him back. And obviously the Braves need a center fielder now. Christian Pache is gone. But, and all of that aside, I love Matt Olson as a player. He's been one of my favorite players for a while. I've had a chance actually to talk to his agent before. Just he came and spoke to our class, BB Abbott, great guy. He was Chipper's agent whenever he was with the Braves. And he said Matt would love to come home to Atlanta. And that's a big thing. We're talking about a hometown kid, hit 39 home runs, mostly in a park that is not very hitter-friendly in Oakland. And he's a strong pull hitter. He's going to be leaving dents in the chop house, man. I'm really excited for this guy. He plays excellent defense. And I don't think that you're necessarily talking about a huge downgrade, upgrade, but when you just talk about losing a franchise icon, obviously it's going to sting a little bit no matter what happens.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to sting no matter what. I don't know. I think you're probably, it's probably even. The question is like, my whole thing with getting Olson is like, yeah, you get him for the next 2 years, you give up a shit ton for him. I mean, let's not like just gloss over the fact that we gave up Pache, who I'm still very high on. You gave up Langoliers, who I absolutely love. One other kind of side of this trade is, that this is a big vote of confidence for William Contreras. We kind of all thought he was the odd man out after the way he performed last year. Langolier's coming up. He's going to be the guy. Well, now it's like, all right, now Contreras, you're back to being the guy as far as catcher of the future of this organization, which I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I mean, we saw a lot of good from Contreras. He clearly can hit. He got caught up way too early. He performed really well when he went back to AAA. But yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of moving pieces to this deal that it's kind of like information overload to like say, I mean, you can't ever grade a trade and say, hey, you won or lost, but I just have a hard time saying, thinking like we're not going to look back on this and say, damn, like we gave up a lot for a guy when we could have just paid Freddie Freeman. I mean, that's really what it comes down in my mind. And as much as I love Matt Olson, yeah, they're probably even as players. But unless you get an extension worked out with Olson at some point or extend him when his contract, we're going to be doing the same thing in 2 years. And we're not going to have the prospects to trade for the next Matt Olson that's on the market. So I'm kind of confused with the big picture move with this trade because it seems very short-sighted for a 2-year period.
Well, Chase, you also have to consider. I mean, if Freddie wanted to be a Brave, like he would be here. That's the thing is, we just heard the Alex Anthopoulos press conference. He was almost in tears. He said they decided to move on last night. I think he probably gave the team a little bit of a courtesy to say go get something else figured out, because I think he might have made a decision, and that decision may not have been the Braves. And at that point, I think Anthopoulos did the best that he could. I think he made the best move that he could. Matt Olson, like I said, he's from Atlanta. I think an extension would be maybe a little easier to work out for that reason. They'll have money. In 2 years, you can talk about moving on from Marcell Ozuna.
Will Smith will be off the books after this year.
Will Smith will be off the books. I don't think it's going to be as much of a problem. And that's my thing is I don't think everybody keeps saying, oh, why don't you just sign Freddie? Like it's just something you just do. If he didn't want to be here, then I think Alex Anthopoulos absolutely did the best thing that he could.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, if that is the case that he didn't want to be here and he really had his sights set on somewhere else where maybe he could earn more money or whatever the reason is, yeah, there's no doubt about that. Obviously, we know the Dodgers are in the mix. We've heard the Rays, Blue Jays, and even Yankees still in the mix. I just have a hard time believing that, if the deals weren't close, I mean, just based off, and things obviously change, especially through negotiations and, maybe you make decisions with your family, which is obviously a big part of Freeman's life. But I have a hard time believing if the deals weren't somewhere close, and we'll see what he gets. I mean, if Freeman goes out there and gets 7 years and $210 million from someone, the Braves are never going to be, able to match that. It just was never going to happen. And even 6 years, 200 mil or something like that. Unlikely that the Braves are ever going to match. So I guess we kind of have to see what Freeman gets to really make a judgment on this. I am interested to see, though, really, if they do try to, buy out some arbitration years and get something, inked more long-term with Matt Olson, especially. He's coming off a big year. It makes a lot of sense if they tried to do something like that, because this window really, even though we lost a lot of great prospects in this window is so open for the next 6-7 years with the current roster that they have in the major leagues, Acuna, Albies, Austin Riley, Fried, Anderson, all those guys. So I do think, eventually they're going to have to start, and if they can, the sooner the better, think about a extension for Olson. And, it is a lot of information overload, honestly, at this point. It's like, obviously you're emotional. And there's the guys that I liked. I mean, I really like Pache and I really like Langoliers. So it's more than just Freeman that you're losing. But that's a huge haul for the A's. I mean, geez, a no brainer. I mean, no wonder this thing got, went through pretty fast because, those are 4 really good prospects, especially Pache and Langoliers.
I really couldn't see them getting a better offer than that, especially. I mean, we keep glossing over him. Dude, Cusack is legit. He can huck on.
Yeah, I mean, that's a first round pick. He hasn't even, he's barely, pitched for the Braves. We haven't really even talked about him because he's pitched probably 6 games in a Braves uniform.
He looked good though. I mean, I
no, he is.
Yeah,
I agree.
I don't think that, obviously the dream scenario, when Braves fans come up with their hypotheticals, they would swap out, Langoliers and Contreras and maybe like Cusick with Schuster, somebody like that, or somebody that hasn't performed, to those levels, doesn't have that much potential. But the reality is you're paying for an all-star and a really good one at that. I mean, we're talking a 40 home run, Gold Glove defense guy. They don't grow on.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm not as down on Contreras as most. I think so many people get down on these prospects when they come up and they don't. I mean, Contreras had no business being in the majors last year or the year before. Like, it was emergency situations we were having to use them. And if you looked at his numbers in AAA last year, he was actually really good, especially offensively. The guy can straight break. So I think you have a major league catcher in the future in him. So I understand.
I understand how to play the catcher position. Could probably say maybe besides pitching, they have a position to play.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I just it's going to be interesting. We're going to be talking about it a lot, especially the prospect side of things. Because, I mean, now you got to start thinking about, I mean, who is the Braves' top prospect? I mean, Michael Harris, I guess if you didn't already have him as the top prospect, kind of automatically becomes there. Drew Waters is now, if you're talking about an outfielder like when, Ozuna and other guys are gone, I mean, Waters looks like the most likely candidate now, which is crazy because Jesse Franklin's a guy that we'll hear a lot about this upcoming season. But the prospect farm it was already pretty thin after all these guys have graduated in recent years. It just got a whole lot thinner. I mean, Braves are obviously in win now mode to the extreme because there is not much left in the cup boards as terms as the farm system.
A lot easier to win on those. I guess say it makes me feel a little bit better.
Yeah, it's easier to stomach these kind of decisions when you're coming off a World Series. If
man, like if you're and rolling around the house and screaming and crying, look, Topo's knows what he's doing. If there's any person in sports that I trust to make the right decision, it's that man.
Yeah, and then I think one of the only other aspects that I really want to touch on here is kind of what's next. I think the Braves aren't done. I mean, getting this move, like you said at the beginning, it's saving. This is a money saving move, especially this year. I think Olson might. I think Olson only is getting paid like $12.5 million this year. I believe that's what his arbitration salary is projected to be. Which Freeman was probably going to make something around 32 at least. So, that's a saving $20 million just on this year's payroll. Obviously, Olson's salary will go up next year against, in his last year of arbitration. And if he ever gets extended, it'll go up past that. But as far as this year goes, you're saving a good chunk of change. So, we were talking about Jorge Soler. Those talks are intensifying. I think that's a guy you need to bring back. And I don't think they're done there. I think, especially with Pache out of the mix, another outfielder. I think they need two outfielders. I wouldn't be surprised if you heard Michael Conforto's name come up. Maybe they bring back Eddie Rosario, but I'm expecting multiple moves that, you don't go all in like this and not, solidify the rest of the roster. So I'm expecting a few more moves, pretty big ones to come in the coming days.
I don't know if they would necessarily have the ammo to pull it off anymore. But if you want to talk Gibson, if you go get him, that's one hell of a lineup you get
there. What did you say? Sorry, your mic was kind of cutting out.
All right.
Brian Reynolds. Yeah, Brian Reynolds. Yeah, you go and get 4 years of control of Brian Reynolds. I don't think we'll have a prospect left in the system, which is fine. I don't even. But I mean, you could kiss goodbye Michael Harris, Drew Waters, and more.
For the time in this situation, Christian Bethancourt and Jose Peraza were the future. I'm a little more part than most people are.
Yeah, well, this is just a quick rap reaction video for you guys. I wanted to give our thoughts on, kind of the whole domino effect of this whole trade. We're going to have a ton more stuff coming out, on the blog via video. I know me and Alex will be talking about this a lot on Today in Atlanta Sports tomorrow. I think me and Jake are going to do a Bloopers Brigade podcast. So we're going to have a ton of stuff coming up on this. And there's going to be a lot more coming out soon. So, let's stay tuned, let's stay strapped, and let's not try to get too emotional until we see the full product.